Mayor, the meeting is now being recorded.
Thank you for that, City Clerk. The meeting will now reconvene at 6:11 p.m. City Attorney, please provide the closed session report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The City Council is now back in open session, having met in closed session to discuss the 3 items listed on the agenda. Staff provided a report for both, but for all 3, but no reportable action was taken. This concludes my report. Thank you.
There was no objection by the City Council. I will now adjourn the closed session City Council meeting at 6:11 p.m. Good evening and welcome to the February 12th, 2024, 6 p.m. regular joint meeting of the Bell Garden City Council and Successor Agency to the Community Development Commission. The meeting will now come to order at 6:11 p.m. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any of the members should have a conflict of interest, please announce any items you are recusing from due to a conflict of interest prior to the item being heard. Tonight's invocation will be given by Minister Daniel Anguiano, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Girl Scout Troop 2543.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor, City Council, Chief of Police, and City staff. Let us bow our heads as we come before God. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that you grant us. We thank you for your mercy and your goodness in this night. I present before you this body, Lord, that you may guide them and use them to discuss all matters and all topics, Father God, that will be discussed. I pray that your knowledge and wisdom be over them. I thank you for the leaders of our city, the leaders of our state, and the leaders of this wonderful nation. We ask you this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
All right, for our Pledge of Allegiance, we will have our city manager lead us.
Please rise, face the flag, place your right hand over your heart, and begin the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. City Clerk, please call roll of the members of the City Council and Successor Agency.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the Council and Successor Agency Gomez,
Present.
Councilmember Pulido, Councilmember Sanchez,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena,
Present.
and Mayor Chavez.
Present. We will now move on to the presentations. City Manager, please introduce the first presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. The first presentation is from the Gateway Cities Council of Governments Energy Action Award. The City of Bell Gardens has won the gold level award in this program. Before I turn it over to our Community Development Director, Gus Romo, I'd just like to say thanks to him and to the other departments that have come to council with different actions that have helped us to attain this level. I think we're one of a few, maybe 6 to 10 cities, 8 in the Gateway COG to achieve the gold level. And this is something that specifically that Gus Romo, I know, has brought to my attention, been working on in the almost 5 years that he's been here. So I'll turn it over to Gus Romo, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you also to our Public Works Department for the help that Bernie and his staff have provided toward getting the points for this. This is every year we go forward to get this award. We start off with bronze, moved up to silver, and the last 2 years have received gold. And so we're happy to say that we continue to work with the COG and the Energy Committee to get this award once more. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Hector De La Torre from the Gateway Cities COG to do a presentation, followed by the award presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is the fun stuff. All the hard work's already happened, but we get to come and give out awards. For those of you that don't know in the public, the Gateway Cities Council of Governments is an association, a joint powers authority of the 27 cities and 11 unincorporated areas from East LA down to Long Beach. It's over 2 million people that reside in this area. If we were a city, one city, we would be the 5th largest city in America. But we're just a part of LA County. If we were a state, we would be the 38th largest state in America. But we're just a part of LA County. So it's really important to remember that together we are able to do a lot more than we can separately, individually. So we are very, very excited about this program. SoCal REN is an association of all of these cities that are trying to increase their sustainability, combat climate change, and improve their operations. Because at the end of the day, if things are more efficient within the city, you're saving money. You're saving money on your electricity bill and other bills that you're having to pay out. And so what SoCal REN does is identify opportunities for those green investments for all of our cities. We have a standard menu of things like an energy analysis or benchmarking or identifying financing options. And then we have special occasional opportunities like low to no cost EV charging stations or efficient water heaters, energy resilience plans. Right now we're working on heat pumps, which despite the name is basically HVAC, but much more efficient than what we've had in the past. And so we get these opportunities, we share them with the cities, and then whichever cities want to take us up on it, then we partner up and we make sure you get the resources. So as was mentioned, Bell Gardens is a gold member. They've been recognized with the gold status. 8 out of 27 cities got gold. So you're in the top, very top tier. And it's your second year. So you achieved it and kept at it. And so we're very, very proud of you for doing that. And this is the award for you to place wherever you put all your great awards. And again, we are very, very thankful for what you're doing. We look forward to identifying more opportunities. In fact, I was telling Mike that we are working right now on bringing these same kinds of resources to residents. And so things like EV subsidies for passenger vehicles, things like energy efficiency programs for the home, whether it's single family or multifamily. Things like air conditioners. We're actually in the process right now of getting a grant for window air conditioners, which in many cases are old and not efficient, swapping them out and having them installed properly. Because many people go to wherever they go, they buy their air conditioner, they stick it in the window, they don't really seal it properly. A lot of that air goes outside and you know, it works more than it has to. So that is another program that we're looking forward to doing with residents. I am hoping to launch this by summer here in the Gateway COG. We will work through the cities to promote it, obviously with the residents, and they can take advantage of it. These are all free or low cost subsidized programs, whether it's from the state, whether it's from the county, or even from our utility companies. So that will be part of the package. Look out for that coming up. But in the meantime, you've done the great work and just want to congratulate you. Thanks. Who do I give it to? Oh, yeah, there's a video too.
And before we go forward with the video, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the great help that our planning division did. So thank you to Stephen Jones, Mona Masayeb, and Adrian Flores for their efforts.
The Gateway Cities Energy Action Awards recognizes cities for their actions to improve energy efficiency and sustainability, and we hope they also help motivate progress through some friendly competition. Congratulations to our 2023 Bronze Energy Champions. And congratulations to our 2023 Silver Energy Champions. And now introducing our 2023 Gold Energy Champion public agencies. Congrats to the City of Artesia. The city is moving towards sustainable transportation by installing a road diet and green stripe bike lanes on 166th Street in partnership with the cities of Norwalk and Cerritos to encourage a shift from automobiles by making walking and biking safer. Congrats to the City of Bell Gardens. The City of Bell Gardens is upgrading HVAC systems at 4 key locations to ensure the provision and sustainability of community resiliency centers for residents and visitors in collaboration with the Energy Resilience Action Plan. 4 locations were considered, with the Ford Park Recreation Center being the top choice of 4 potential sites. Congrats to the City of Long Beach for reaching gold for the 3rd year in a row. The City of Long Beach recently installed cool roof replacements at several park community centers. This is a different type of project the city is utilizing to address energy efficiency and sustainability. Congrats to the City of Maywood for achieving gold for the 2nd year in a row. The city recently finished replacing the roof and HVAC systems at city facilities to improve energy efficiency. Congrats to the City of Norwalk. The City of Norwalk purchased and replaced 60 energy-efficient LED walkway lights at Norwalk Park. This not only aligns with one of the city's strategic plan goals, but also supports our broader goals of creating a more resilient and eco-friendly community. Congratulations to the City of Paramount for achieving gold for 3 years in a row. The City of Paramount proactively advanced its fleet capabilities by expanding its electric vehicle infrastructure with 4 more Level 2 EV charging ports. This year's fleet expansion initiative also featured the integration of more electric-powered Nissan Leafs to replace traditional gas-powered vehicles. And congrats to the City of Pico Rivera for its 2nd year as a Gold Tier agency. The City of Pico Rivera successfully applied for and received the Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant to support the Rosemead and Lakewood Boulevard Complete Corridor project. Once completed, this 26.3-mile corridor will benefit the multimodal transportation system, enhance rapid bus service, improve connectivity and expansion of the light rail system, and stimulate new transit-oriented development through the corridor. Congrats to the City of Whittier. In 2018, the City of Whittier joined the Clean Power Alliance, or CPA, to purchase renewable electrical power for residents at competitive rates. The CPA offers 3 rate options: lean power, clean power, and 100% green power. Utilizing renewable or green energy reduces greenhouse emissions for over 27,000 active residential CPA customers.
You may wonder, why did I show? Because I want you to see what everyone else is doing, and maybe there's some ideas of some of those things that you could do here as well. So that wasn't just, well, there's competition too, but it's also so that all the cities can see what everyone else is doing. So again, thank you very much for the time. Thank you for letting me come and present. Do I just leave this here? Am I supposed to? Okay, wonderful.
This is awesome. Thank you so much to our staff. Thank you to both our directors, Gus Romo, Bernie, for all the work that they do. Everybody in Public Works, everybody in the planning division. It's great that our city is recognized, and I just again really appreciate this 2023 Gateway Cities 2023 Energy Action Award, and it's gold energy. So thank you again. Moving on, next presentation, City Manager.
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Chavez. The next item is a proclamation recognizing February as Black History Month. The succinct purpose is to recognize the contributions of African Americans and the African American culture and its benefit to the United States of America. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. It is a pretty lengthy proclamation, but we will get through it. City of Bell Gardens proclamation, a proclamation in honor of Black History Month. Whereas each February, National Black History Month serves as both a celebration and a powerful reminder that Black history is American history, Black culture is American culture, and Black stories are essential to the ongoing story of America. Our faults, our struggles, our progress, and our aspirations. And shining a light on Black history today is as important to understanding ourselves and growing stronger as a nation. Celebrating the immeasurable contributions of Black Americans, honoring the legacies and achievements of generations past, reckoning with centuries of injustice and confronting those injustices that still fester today. And our nation was founded on an idea that all of us are created equal and deserve to be treated with equal dignity throughout our lives. And by facing the shadows of slavery and the blight of systemic racism that still diminishes our nation today and holds back our nation from reaching our full promise and potential, we recognize these tragedies openly and honestly and promise to work together as one people to deliver on America's promise of equity and dignity for all and become a stronger city and nation, a more perfect version of ourselves. And in the face of wounds and obstacles older than our nation itself, Black Americans can be seen in every part of our society today, strengthening and uplifting all America, leading industries and movements for change, serving our communities and our nation at every level, and advancing every field across the board, including arts and sciences, business and law, health and education, and many more. And let us carry forward to the work to build an America that is, in the beautiful words of the poet Amanda Gorman, quote, bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jorge Chavez, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2024 and annually thereafter as Black History Month in the City of Bell Gardens, and urge all citizens to celebrate the diversity of the Black community while continuing our efforts to fight for equity, opportunity, and dignity to which every Black American is due in equal measure. Proclaim this 12th day of February 2024, signed Jorge Chavez, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens with the Bell Gardens City Council. Thank you. We will now be moving on to public participation on non-agenda items. Public participation is now open. City Clerk, please announce the instructions.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, subject to an overall 30-minute period unless announced otherwise. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through Zoom may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will first hear from speakers that are in person. We did not receive any written communications on non-agendized items, and we don't have anyone raising their hand, and we didn't receive any public comment cards.
There is no objection by the members of the City Council, Successor Agency. I will close public participation for non-agenda items. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation on agenda items.
Thank you. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through Zoom may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from the members of the public that are physically present in the council chamber, and we did receive, as of now, 11 written communications that have been distributed to the city council.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call up Michelle Piñon.
Hi, nice to see everybody again. My name is Michelle Piñon. I'm a lifelong resident of Bell Gardens, graduate of Bell Gardens High School, but I'm actually here in a professional capacity. I work for the Safe Cities campaign at Stand.Earth, and I'm here to testify on item number 9 in support of the proposed climate resolution policy. I'm extremely proud to see this work being done locally. In my professional capacity, I'm often working with cities that have a lot more resources and wealth at their disposal. So it was a real joy to get to work with East Yards Communities for Better Justice on this policy and acknowledge the histories and the injustices that Bell Gardens has suffered with respect to environmental justice. I'm extremely hopeful that in passing this resolution, you will actually set a standard for other Southeast LA communities that will follow, and Bell Gardens can demonstrate that they are a leader. Also very serendipitous that y'all got an award for the climate stuff too, so it seems like there's momentum there. I lastly wanted to say that I'm extremely proud of the intentionality that went into the text of the resolution. In it, you will find Bell Gardens specific information about our history, data around the pollution burden that we have bared, and the variety of other environmental injustices that we have endured. And I hope that you will adopt this resolution today because it will send a powerful message to the residents of all ages that you take their health and future seriously, particularly in the midst of a changing climate environment. I also wanted to briefly speak on item number 11, which I was not aware of until I came in here. I will say my family has been homeowners in Bell Gardens for a long time now, but the piece of our community that is represented by the renters is instrumental, and I think they're incredibly valuable residents. And so I ask that you continue to stand by the original ordinance and protect it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, Jocelyn Del Real.
Hi, good evening, members of the council. This is Jocelyn Del Real. I'm here as a part of East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice, but also as a resident of the city of Bell Gardens. I'm here in support for the climate emergency resolution and the global, fossil fuel global proliferation, hard to say that word. It goes without saying, right? Our communities have seen the impacts of inaction to protect air quality, water accessibility, and disinvestments. And it doesn't take a fancy degree or agency statistics to see the overflow of trucks in our streets and emissions from the goods movement. We've also seen the fossil fuel industry that's left an imprint in our communities, from the refineries to the storage and transport. And this cannot be done at the expense of our community's health. And this resolution would be a step forward to that collective responsibility to our health and our well-being. With this resolution, we would like to see commitments to make our communities more resilient to the threats of climate change by increasing access to green spaces, access to clean water, cooling and heating centers, which was refreshing to see about this award, and supporting a just transition to cleaner energy sources while supporting job opportunities in the sector. But also I wanted to bring up, the importance of community accountability, right? But we have to create an advisory to have community members assist council and staff in carrying forward these commitments in this resolution, and also to try to carry forward the environmental justice element. So we're happy to support in these efforts moving forward. And also wanted to comment on item number 11, because we can't talk about climate justice without talking about renters protections and housing justice. And so I wanted to express solidarity and support the Unión de Vecinas that are here and the more than 80% renters in our city that, deserve to continue to have these protections, because a lot of them have to move out, right, because of the lack of protections. A lot of folks that are not here today to be able to testify. But I want to ask you to please uphold what was passed, right? These protections that were set in place for the more of 80% of renters in the city, some of them that are here today also. So I ask you to listen to their voices, because usually they are the ones that are left at a power imbalance compared to folks who actually own land and own property. So that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call next speaker Mirna Torres.
Thank you for allowing me to make my presentation. I hope you all got my package. My husband and myself are immigrants from Mexico. We came here with a dream of doing something for our children. We bought a building here in Bell Gardens in 1981. We have 6 units, of which our tenants, one apartment A, Lemus family has lived there for 33 and a half years. Apartment B, Licona family has lived there for 11 years. Apartment C, Espinosa family has lived there for 8 years and 6 months. Apartment D, Velasquez family is the newest member of our family, 3 years and 4 months, because most of them buy the properties when they move. Apartment E, Barroso family has been there 14 years and 6 months. Apartment F has been there for 25 years and 7 months. All of those people we have treated with tremendous care and love. And our rents have always been below the market since we owned that property. We got held by this. I'm not against rent control. I'm against unfair rent control. As a property owner, we have been hurt tremendously. We are on a loss on a monthly basis because we're so far below the market, the fair market. As you can see, you have the packages. We're more than 35% below. So if you only get 1.5 raise and we're 35% below, we are continuously going underwater. And like I said, I'm not against rent control, but this is so unfair. We're choking. Just this past Saturday, we had a problem of a plumbing problem with water damage that is going to turn into thousands of dollars of maintenance or repair. 5 of those thousands of dollars is our co-payment. And just owning a property, and I would like to challenge you to go by my building. You need the address, I'm sure Daisy has it, and see what a pride used to be because now I'm sad. I go by my building and I'm sad. But that building is one of the best in Bell Gardens. And I just hope that you reconsider the way that ordinance is. I'm not saying get rid of rent control, no. Just reconsider the way it's written. I don't know how many people are hurting like I am, but I sure we are tremendously. That's all I can say.
I'd like to call up Melody Cuevas.
My name is Melody, and I wanted to share my appreciation for the council members in doing what is right and continuously protecting your most vulnerable, being tenants in Bell Gardens. Your ordinance was a significant pass and relief to so many families in Bell Gardens. I am from Southeast Los Angeles, and unfortunately in my life, I have faced extreme housing vulnerability. Since 2020, I have moved 7 different times, and many family members of mine had to leave Southeast LA for other states because rent is way too high. And moreover, I think about how difficult the economic situation is for people who have absolutely no assets and how we as tenants have to rely on the mercy of others. In the midst of a health crisis where I had precancerous endometrial growth and tumors in my uterus, I lost a job from my health conditions, and with that, housing. I had to sleep on a couch, and while that was okay because at least I had a roof over my head, there have been so many times in my short 24 years of life where I had to give up so much. Just for that, a roof over my head. I did everything right. I went to an Ivy League school. I had a 4.0 GPA in high school and college, worked very hard, a lot of times over 40 hours a week. And still, I went days without eating. My mom would call me crying, saying food didn't taste good anymore, knowing that I had none. What I'm trying to say is landlords and property owners Do not rely on tenants to make it by. Do not rely on tenants to feed their families. Do not rely on tenants to not go hungry. They rely on them to make a profit. Overturning their ordinance would be devastating and ultimately greed wins. If men were angels, we wouldn't need any governance. The small $156 registration fee many are rallying about is incomparable to the suffering that so many families like mine experience. Overall, many tenants can't be here to thank you, often because they're doing what they can to sustain their livelihood, whereas many in opposition are only protecting their profit. But I will say, you have already done the right thing. Do not allow the voices of the minority to corner you into something your consciousness doesn't align with. Thank you. I yield my time.
I'd like to call up Margarita Rebelta.
Name is Margarita Revuelta. My husband and I, we own apartments in the city of Bell Gardens. I believe I talked to you, Mr. Chavez, the other day. I had a couple questions. I'll be very simple. First question, did you understand what we suffer as a landlords? We are the minority, she say, but we provide a house for everybody. We suffer when they don't pay the rent, when they are late, when we had to do large repairs in the property, the mortgage, the insurance. Our profit is very, very minimal. So, and you guys in the top, they put us 1.9% increase a year. I asking you to see my rents, to see everybody's rent, and then make analysis. Who is very high, who is low, and make an adjustment. Don't just put the 1.9, because I have rents, one apartment for $1,025, two bedrooms for $1,200. It's not fair. I'm going to sell my properties. If I put in the market today, they're not gonna pay me nothing because my rents are very low. I went to repair some water heater, and the plumbing, it cost me $1,500 the other day. For that apartment, the plumber goes 2 times a year at $350. If something happened and the faucets or broke something, I had to repair. It's no money for us to do any repairs and continue to live the decent life that we deserve. Second question is, I asked everybody to explain to me why we paid the fee for $156. It doesn't provide any help for me. If I go to AAA and pay a fee for $200, provide me with tow, with a lot of things. Here, I only pay $156 to help the tenants. Can you tell me what benefits I have when I pay the money? It does such a good thing to pay the fee charged to the tenants, because the help is for them, not for the landlords. I'm finished. Thank you very much.
I'd like to call up Cassandra. I'd like to call up Cassandra.
Como bien saben, hemos peleado por este control de renta por casi 3 años. 3 años que se peleó.
As you know, we have been fighting for this rent control for 3 years. We have fought to reach a goal so that there would be no difference between landlords and tenants. Now that you have passed this ordinance, not because you felt like it, but because you studied it for 3 years so that this would give the best result for landlords and tenants. Our city had never done anything like this. Our city is a pioneer in this. And why did it happen? Because you all saw the need of so many people, so many evictions, so much harassment, so much need. There was no control. It was something that was getting out of hand. And not just here, but in other cities. Cities that are really basically poor because of their incomes. And it's not me saying it, it's the studies. All of this has been based on studies, comparative studies. They brought in professors to talk about how much it would cost for a property to be viable or not. If housing were not something sustainable, there would not be so much housing being built. This is something profitable. But because of these laws that have been passed here, we were able to control these profits. We were able to protect the rights of thousands of tenants, something that had never been done. And in a city so small, so tiny, no one thought that they could accomplish this. But it was because of all of you, and people trusted you, and it happened. Housing is a right to live a decent life in decent conditions, to live without excessive costs. Something like this can be done, and it was done. Why should it be modified or changed? This law that is so noble for the community. There is help for property owners. It's just a matter of looking for it the way the tenants looked for it. That's all. Thank you.
I call up Maria Martinez.
Buenas tardes. Mi
Good
nombre es María
evening. My name is Maria Martinez. I'm here in support of the Union of Neighbors, and especially people who live in trailers, in mobile homes. What I ask is just be fair. Don't to not raise the rent excessively, especially for people who live in mobile homes. The owner doesn't want to fix anything. Electricity goes out. Sometimes they answer, sometimes they don't answer. And we also want support and help. Thanks to Marco, who has helped us a lot, has supported us, and we thank him from the bottom of our hearts. And that's what I ask, is for your support. We want the same help as other tenants so that rent does not go up excessively. There are people who are on food stamps, but if you can't get that, or if you don't want to apply for that, I just want you to know and to do something right, to do something fair. I am single and I can't work. I don't work because I can't work, but even if I did work, I don't think I would be making enough to pay the excessive rent increases that they're trying to put in on.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jesus Rojas. I come from the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, AGLA, representing rental housing providers throughout Los Angeles, Ventura, and San Bernardino counties, including Bell Gardens. The vast majority of our members are mom and pop owners with fewer than 20 units, many of who are retirees relying on their multifamily property to make ends meet during their retirement years. Any small business including rental housing providers, cannot afford to stay in business when their prices are limited to rates far below existing inflation and costs. Owners must pay ever-increasing costs to repair and maintain their older buildings, including huge increases in property insurances. Rates that we see that have gone 100 to 200% per year due to insurances leaving the state. Increases in mortgage premiums doubling in recent years. water 23%, trash hauling 8%, property taxes 2%, as well as labor costs and costs for materials. We talk about water heaters, plumbing, electrical, drywall, paint, roof shingles, etc. Limiting rent increases below inflation means that mom and pop owners will be forced out of business and into selling their properties to large corporations. These corporate owners will demolish the existing older buildings in favor of new buildings with higher rents. This will cause existing renters to have to relocate, as well as causing mom and pops to lose their primary source of income at a time of life when they are no longer able to work. We need the city to recognize these small business owners as important partners in providing affordable rental housing and allowing them to increase rent by 100% CPI or 4%, whichever is greater. In addition, we need the city council to create a floor similar to Los Angeles County existing ordinance of 2% without a floor in place. Mom and pop owners will not be able to save enough funds to pay for future major expenses, just such as new roof, new exterior painting, electrical panels, water line, etc. If there is no margin for them to accrue the funds to meet such expense, then they will be forced to sell their buildings as is, which when such major expenses occur. This will only encourage any new owners to demolish the building rather than spending money to restore it. Lastly, we urge the city council to reconsider the upcoming new rent registry fee of $156 per unit. This amount is extremely high compared to other similar cities, as evidenced by the staff report. Baldwin Park only charges $28 per unit, and County of Los Angeles only charges up to $90 per unit as a maximum. It is unfair that in predominantly low income area that the city will be charging one of the highest rates for a rent registry.
Can Brooke Irvin? Before Brooke Irvin begins, as you can come to the forward to the dais. I do want to make a point of general privilege. Let the record reflect that as folks are coming up here, I notice that there's people clapping and speaking out of term. We want to listen what you are saying. We're paying attention. So please, this is just for the record that I am issuing a first warning, and which is interfering in the orderly conduct of this meeting by preventing those who are currently recognized to speak, in this case now being Brooke Irving, to conduct, who are currently recognized to speak, from being heard, and by interfering in the council's and the public ability to listen to the recognized speaker. This is the first warning to cease the disruptive conduct per SB 1100. If you do not stop the disruptive conduct, you may be removed from these chambers by the Sergeant at Arms. We understand this matter is very important to everyone here, but ask that you observe the rules of decorum and be respectful of those whose opinions may be different from your own. Thank you.
Hi, you guys. My name is Brooke Irvin. I'm a statewide organizer with MH Action. And I'm here to talk about you guys lifting the ordinance that is in place in Bell Gardens. And it just saddens me, to be honest with you. We're coming out of a pandemic. We're in a homelessness crisis. And all that's going to do is make that situation worse. Like, we're all people. We're standing here looking outside and we're seeing people on the streets. We're seeing them struggling. We're seeing them going through mental issues, going through different things. And you guys are talking about going backwards. This is something that helps many people. I didn't put a script together. I don't have nothing like that. I'm just really speaking from the heart. I just think that if you guys lift that, if you guys take the percentage off, I really feel like that's a trick, because that's what's really moving the 4% in Bell Gardens. I just think that it's just gonna cause a lot of people hurt, more homeless population, more people struggling, more people on the streets. And I just feel like we don't need to go backwards like that. We need to move forward. So, yeah, so that's it. I just hope you guys find it in your heart to look at the people in this room, the community in this room, and have a little bit of grace. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to call up Jose Sanchez.
Hi everyone, my name's Jose Sanchez. I'm speaking to all you guys, in particular, Francis de Leon. And the reason I'm talking to everyone is because, well, first of all, I'm from MH Action as well, Manufactured Home Action. And I'm here speaking on behalf of like the people that I actually talk to, right here, the residents of Bell Gardens, and all the struggles that they go through. Basically, before I got into my organization, I was one of those residents where a predatory landlord came, bought the land, started raising the rent, started harassing people, started, throwing people at immigration, and basically, like I could understand it, like, like a lot of these mom and pop landlord owners, they have to make their money, and I understand that. But at the same time, there has to be some type of fairness. And when they look down on people, like if we're like non-humans, and that's very disgusting. So for that reason, I got into this organization to amplify my voice and speak on behalf of all the people I talk to. Some of these landlords don't even respect the existing law. So that's just something that, from what I hear, it's very heartbreaking because I have to go to these people's houses, I knock on their doors, and I see all the stuff that they deal with. That was me, actually. Uh, so I just want you to consider not going backwards, like what Brooke said. Let's, how about we all work as a community to work forward? Uh, I'm gonna do a little bit more case study on what's going on here, and I'll have a better comment when I come back in future meetings. So I just want to thank you for even listening, and thank you so much.
Call up the next speaker, Irma Lopez. Sorry about that.
Muy buenas tardes, personas aquí presentes, señor alcalde y asimismo autoridades, dueños de propiedad, tengan muy buenas tardes. Yo hablo en nombre de todos los dueños de aquí de Bell Gardens, que por favor remuevan el control de renta. Una de las razones es porque ustedes se han dado cuenta de la inflación y eso es absurdo que le pongan 1.9. Y los que han hecho eso, pues no sé por qué lo hicieron. Yo creo que los dueños tenemos voz y voto y tienen que respetar la decisión de uno.
You have to respect the decisions that are made. The landlord who just came up, the landlady, she said, you're supporting tenants. And so why don't you charge them per unit? Because we already have a heavy burden and we're not millionaires. We're poor, just like you, just like all of you. And I need protection too, because I have achieved the American dream. I came here to work. I came here to suffer. I don't want to be supported. But the idea that you come here for the government to support you, that's not true. And I don't think anyone wants that. You all don't want that. Please consider this, talk about it, and find a solution, because we are not able to help the tenants. Our rents are very low. We don't need rent control because for many years I have not raised my tenants' rents. I'm not trying to make a big profit. My tenants are like my family, and I work with them. So please put your hand over your heart and look at the need of the landlords. You need to understand what all this work is worth. The renters don't understand it because all they know is how to be tenants. But our mentality is that we want to work for what we earn and not ask the government for help. But please, that's why we ask you to make the right decision, because this is going to be ugly. For years, we haven't raised rents, and now you put in rent control, And you have opened up a huge can of worms. Please, I beg you. I'm speaking on behalf of all landlords because people have been calling me. We have talked to attorneys, but he couldn't come tonight. Thank you very much. I'm going to speak in Spanish because I know everyone speaks Spanish here except maybe the city manager. You've listened to the American lady who spoke and the other lady who spoke on behalf of property owners. Honestly, there are a lot of people who may commit abuses, but most don't. We don't need rent control. Most of my tenants have been in my property. They've been living there for 10 years. There's never been any abuse, but everything's gone up. Materials have gone up, taxes, insurance, everything's gone up. This is not about abusing or taking advantage of the tenants, but everything has gone up. Price of everything has gone up. Everything. Labor. And every time I ask to speak with you in private, you talk about you put all these requirements in, you want all of our bills, all of our invoices, but this isn't fair that you set it at 1.9%. I swear to God, I don't know where you got that from. I don't want to fight with you, argue with you, but do any of you own property? I'd like to know if any of you own property, because you have to pay 3% in property taxes per year, and you set 1.9%. Trash, electricity, water, insurance, everything's gone up. We don't want to do anything unfair to our tenants, but we need something fair for us. We need our tenants just like they need us. When there's a problem, we have to repair it. If we don't, not only will the tenant complain, but the property will deteriorate in value. You're just trying to bury Bell Gardens. We're not going to be able to sell our properties for even what we paid for them. Please, and analyze this properly. It can't be 1.9%. That's impossible. That doesn't match reality. Listen to all of these property owners who are talking. I think that you haven't thought about this. You go and you think you're trying to be good people, and you're talking about rent control for 3 years. If the owners are raising the rents excessively, then they're not people. They're not business people. They're animals. Thank you.
Next speaker, Rogelio Rodriguez. As Rogelio Rodriguez is walking up, I do want to make a quick comment to the public.
Antes de que llegue Rogelio Rodríguez, quiero hacer un comentario. Los comentarios son solamente para el consejo municipal.
Directamente nosotros como el concilio. Gracias.
Good evening. My name is Rogelio Rodriguez. You all know where I live on Clara Street. I've lived there for 40 years. What I don't understand here in the first place is I know that none of you have property. The only one who has property is Pulido, and she lives in Downey. So you violated laws, conflict of interest laws, because none of you has a home. So you could not vote on rent control because you don't have a home. That is conflict of interest. You're violating the law. the other thing, charging 1.9%. I'd like for some of you to be landlords. How much does a water heater cost? $900. How long is it going to take me to get the $900 together at that rate? We don't depend on you at all because you have all been blind and deaf to all of this. You've been told many times, these people who are here, all of us have come and we've said the same thing. The tenants have an advantage over us. To buy property, we need sometimes we had to eat nothing but beans and tortillas to be able to buy this property. Not the tenant. The tenant comes in, rents, and if it's not working out, they just leave. How long did it take to save up to buy that house, to buy that home? And none of you, what help do I have from any of you? None. Who do you represent? Because you come here and you play deaf. We had a meeting upstairs and I was waiting to see just one of you at that meeting. No one. You can see clearly that you don't care. The only thing you care about is to have those positions and call yourself representatives. But representatives of whom? You don't represent anyone. People come in, they complain, they tell you this and that, and you take no action, no help. You just make everything worse. I hope that now that you have this on the agenda, I hope you're not going to show the same favoritism. I'd like to see which of you could buy a house now. None, because you wouldn't even qualify. But you just are doing things as if things were one way and they're not.
Vamos a traer el micrófono ahora a María Rojas.
Next speaker, Norma Cabral.
Después llega Norma Cabral.
Hello, council members.
Buenas, miembros.
I am with the renters control as well. The letter we received from the $156, and you mentioned half of the amount we pass on to our renters. I gave a copy of a letter to every single tenant. Every single tenant told me they were not aware of a renters control. Every tenant was upset. Why should they pay the $78, which is half of the 156? And they said if they're not receiving any benefit out of this, and the contract is between the landlord and the tenant, why should they pay and we reimburse the city council members, the city, from the letter you sent over? So we were put in a position, very uncomfortable with our tenants. We've never had a problem with them. So they're very, very upset with that from the beginning. We've had tenants that have lived there over 20 years. So we haven't raised their rents as well. They have very low rents. Like many of us, $1,000 is what they pay. The renters that spoke here, they might pay more, but it's not fair if their landlord charges them very high rents that we get penalized for it. If one messes up at the whole city and causing this rent control, all the others that have lower rent control, I don't think it's fair that we get penalized as well. I understand if you want to do a rent control and put a cap for others to not go over, fine with that. But us who charge less rent, at least let us maintain some kind of, be able to raise something to maintain our expenses as well. We pay taxes, we pay, just like everyone else, all the other utilities and expenses. We've had many things that we've had to maintain and fix our building for the renters to be safe. But we don't get also financial help. There is no financial help, as you're all aware. Renters may get financial help. I'm not sure, I'm not aware of it, but us as landlords, we do not. So for that reason, I ask you, one, if you can withdraw the $156, this way we don't have to deal with that interaction, well, with that problem with our tenants, charging them. Second, in the letter it said we have to provide personal information from our tenants, their phone number, their name, their other information. Many of our tenants were very uncomfortable with that. They were questioning us. They don't want any fraud being committed. They don't want their personal information. We've told them if you have a problem with it, go with the city. So I want to inform you because you're causing some problems with us where we have no choice but to pass it on to you. So I want you to be aware that when they're very uncomfortable providing information, they're very uncomfortable paying that amount. They're very low income. They barely make it with their social security. They barely make it with their bills. I understand that. For that reason, we've kept our rents very low. Thank you.
Lilia Chavez.
Muy buenas tardes, miembros del concilio.
Good evening, council members. The reason I'm here today is the same reason that many of us tenants have come. We live in this city. What I've been seeing, why do you need to modify an ordinance that is already approved? It's already in place. It has been a years-long fight. We've been making flyers, talking to people. We have achieved so much, so many good things with this ordinance because there are people, there are families who sleep soundly now. They're happy. They're not under the pressure, the fear that they're going to get evicted. They're going to get a knock on the door for some reason. There's no need to modify something that has already been done, that has already been approved, that was fought for. Please think about what you're doing because many families, I am not talking only about regular families that don't have any disabilities, but there are families with children with disabilities. There are people who are older. There are people who survive on Social Security and they can barely pay their rents. They're afraid that they're going to be harassed and why you are going to throw away all this work that has already been done. Before you do something like that, think about it hard because these are families. If you don't want to see families on the street, listen to the community. If we got up and fought for this rent control, we will fight again. We will rise up again. Thank you very much.
Vamos a ceder el micrófono ahora a Dani Robles
Abraham Rios.
y Abraham Ríos.
Hello, my name is Abraham Rios.
Buenas.
I'm here representing my parents and other small landowners. We're here to express how unfair and how biased these ordinances are to small landowners and do not benefit us at all. I'll be talking from the cover sheet agenda report, item 11, from the city manager to the city council members. Under the background and discussion, if we go under number 1, it says limit the annual rent increase to 15% of the change in the CPI or 4%, which is the ceiling, which is a cap. If you continue reading, it says no floor. The fact that there is no floor is completely unacceptable and unfair to small business owners. And that needs to be addressed exponentially. Number 2, waive the rental registration fee. Again, how everybody was saying, this is pretty much self-explanatory. It's another unnecessary expense for landowners that realistically do not benefit landowners at all. If we continue reading for a little lower, fiscal year 2024, small area FMRs for Bell Gardens, 2-bedroom, is registered as 2,090. So with this, it's using a very broad and general brush to paint something that is more complicated than that. As we know, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath is not the same as a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with a patio is not the same as a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with nothing. So we're using a broad brush to generalize something that's way more complicated than that. And if we're using the 80% threshold, let's use the same example for the 2-bedroom. If somebody is paying $1,673, which is only $1 over the threshold, it'll take them 13 years to get
not to the 2090, but to 2069 with 63 cents. It's not only till year 14 where they exceed paying the 2090, and that's completely unacceptable. And if we go over the property owner's cost increases, as we could see and how everybody else has pointed out, water has gone up 23%. Trash has gone up 8%. And property taxes, you guys have it here as 2% annually. And this doesn't even cover the repairs, the labor costs, the materials, the maintenance, the insurance. The only protection, quote unquote, that we have is that we could pass 50% over to the tenant, but it's capped at a 5%, which realistically is no help for us at all. And one final thing that we need to stop doing is we need to stop vilifying what a landowner is. A lot of us, like my parents, are immigrants who came here, who have worked hard. We all have 9-to-5 jobs. It's not like we're millionaires over here and we just want to raise rents for everybody else. We're just trying to do what's right and raise something that has an actual standard and not, we're not trying to take advantage of anybody, but we need to do what's right for us to stay afloat as well. Again, we should absolutely look this over because it has no benefit to landowners at all. Thank you.
Raúl Navarres. Raúl Navarres. Gladys Velázquez. Gladys Velázquez.
I didn't intend on speaking tonight, but I am. And it seems like I've listened to everybody here, tenant advocates and landlords and everything. And it seems like it's all about fairness. So inflation has eaten up a lot of things. And it's obvious that a lot of tenants here don't know what anything really costs. They've never had to pay for a roof, a window, a carpet, tile, anything, ever. They've never paid for anything. They just pay the rent and that's it. And in Bell Gardens, we're very fortunate because they pay less than anyone else. I'm a landlord here. I charge $1,200 for 2 bedrooms. You're not going to get that anywhere. So this really hurts me and hurts a lot of tenants here. There's a lady here in a white parka, and I'm not going to address her. She obviously has no clue what anything costs. And from what I took notes, none of the tenants know what anything costs. But those of us that are small mom and pop landlords know what everything costs. And we're very fair with our people. No one wants to overcharge or anything like that. So it's all about fairness. The rent control here is not fair to small mom and pop landlords, who's probably everybody here. I haven't seen, any big landlord here. And so I guess what I'm asking for you guys to do is be fair. You know what you know what some things cost. You know what food, inflation on everything is. I'd bet that 90% of everyone in this room, including you guys, don't know what a water heater costs or anything else. And we gladly put them in when we need it or anything else. But you got to be fair because $1,200 for a 2-bedroom, you go anywhere else, you're not going to get that. We'll do it. But once you start putting controls on everything, then it screws everything up for everybody. So it's all about fairness. Be fair to small and pop landlords who I'm sure everyone behind me wants to be at some point. I'm sure they want to be that at some point. And the young gentleman who spoke maybe 2 or 3 before me, he's right on the money. I think he spoke for his parents. And so it's all about fairness. Be fair to landlords, mom and pops, who's 90% of everyone in this town, and tenants too, even the ones we can't get out who are freaking nightmares for everyone else.
Gladys Velázquez. Gladys Velasquez.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Gladys Velázquez. Es la primera
Good
vez que
evening, my name is Gladys Velasquez. This is the first time I've come to one of these, and I see both sides of the issue. I mean, they both seem pretty equal. I am renting, and I'm not paying a lot of rent. I like to live well. Where I rent, I put in a rug, other new things because I don't want my rent to go up. I buy everything for the same reason because I don't want my rent to go up. So I can put myself in the place of everyone because I also have been working in a business for 16 years where I was making not a lot. I had to leave payments. You understand, you don't earn much. Gasoline, eggs, everything's up. And I understand these people who are having to pay things because I changed my floor, my carpet, everything, and I paid for that myself. So I just ask that everyone see both sides. Tenants like me and property owners because they have had to pay for what they have. So look at all sides.
La siguiente persona es Guadalupe Medina Urias.
Good evening, everyone. This is also my first time here. I didn't know that I'd be speaking, but I've been listening to both sides. I am a renter as well. I'm a single mom. I have a good job, but if rent goes up more, I'll be homeless. I have also listened to what the property owners have to say. I don't know what can be done to help them and us, because if my rent goes up very much from what I'm paying now, I'll be homeless, and I don't want to be homeless. Like I said, I'm a single mom. Everything has also gone up for us. I'm speaking as a single mom. I don't have enough to make it through the month. Sometimes I have to ask for loans. So I don't know how you all can help both of us, because I don't want to, I'm not, I understand that some property owners have helped us. So I don't know how you can help both sides, both. I don't know how, but I hope you can help both sides. And I want to thank you for always wanting to help our community. Thank you very much.
Ahora, la siguiente persona al micrófono, Raúl Godínez.
Good evening, honorable council member.
Buenas noches.
I am currently a landlord in the city of Bell Gardens, and I would like to say currently because I am thinking of completely moving out of this, being a landlord anyways. The current formula that you guys have of one at 50% of the CPI in itself already tells you that something's off, because if the CPI which is a consumer price index, which is already manipulated by the federal government to reflect a lower inflation rate than what it is in order to attract investments from foreign nations. In the rental housing, repairs are extremely expensive now. It's no longer where a plumber comes because of for whatever reason, it's no longer $150. They pretty much charge whatever they feel like charging. There's a shortage of labor in a lot of fields. Unfortunately for us, one of them is electricians, roofers, plumbers. They are pretty much we're at their mercy now. The rent control is here. I understand that, and it's here to stay. I have no problem with it. It just, we have to find a middle ground, something that's fair for landlords and something that's fair for the tenants. I understand that there's a lot of abusive landlords out there. That's not the case with a lot of also mom and pop landlords. I take care of my tenants, I take care of my buildings, but it is getting extremely difficult to take care of these buildings now because the same way that there's good tenants, there's also very bad, that there's good tenants and good landlords, there's also bad landlords and bad tenants that do not take care of your property. They clog up the plumbing, create disasters in the building, make holes in the walls, don't keep their apartments clean. It goes both ways. It's not just one way. The something that nobody talks about here, and you guys could Google this. Buildings that have 5 and above units, there is no 30-year loan. It does not exist. Most of those loans are either 3 or 5 years fixed. I will give you an example on one of the loans that I have. $750,000. I had it at a 3.8%. My 5 years came up 2 months ago. The previous payment, including taxes, was $5,100. It went up to $7,673, 1 month to the next. And that's pretty much common throughout the whole country. There is no fixed interest rate on anything above 4 units. It does not exist in the banking system. So that alone will put a landlord in a really, really bad position on a building with rent control, where you're not even recuperating the CPI. The larger cities in LA, for the lady that earlier said that there was a lot of studies made, LA City average 3%, LA County 4% for this year. Something's off.
Doris Serrano.
Muy buenas tardes. Yo vengo aquí.
Good evening. I'm here also as a tenant and as a resident of Bell Gardens. I am also here to support the cause. I want to tell you that I'm here to ask you to reconsider this and to consider the housing crisis that we're going through right now. You don't want to turn into another LA where people have to camp outside their homes. What another person expressed here just really touched my heart. When we get to a certain level of comfort, we forget about people underneath us. We forget about the need that other people are going through. This lady has asked for help, and she was very fair. She asked for help for property owners as well, but she said if her rent goes up very much, she'll be homeless. I just want to let you know that I have been homeless, and I have been a victim of unscrupulous landlords and landlords who had no heart. And they've been mercilessly in evicting me. No good cause. We kept receipts for every payment we made, but they would make us pay in cash so that they could screw around with things. And then whenever they felt like it, they would evict us. This woman went to court and said that I had not paid the rent for 3 months, and that was a lie, and she knew that. I had given her 2 months in advance, plus the extra month when I moved in. She even threatened to beat me up. This lady tried to beat me up at Washington and Eastern, or Watcher and Eastern. I'm here to ask you to reconsider this, please. Keep the rent control. We are not millionaire families. I understand the property owners who are here to ask you to please consider them and to decide in their favor. We all understand the inflation crisis as well, and it's true, but let's be realistic. Many of them have inherited their properties. Those properties were paid for. We are not responsible for the fact that they have gone out getting more loans and having to repay them. But then they want to lay it on the back of the tenants.
Martín Hernández. Martín Hernández.
La siguiente persona que va a tomar el micrófono es el señor Martín Hernández.
Hola.
Hi, my name is Martin Hernandez. I'm here because I don't know whether to say yes or no, but I know that 1% is really low. But there are a lot of people like me and my mom, which is the two of us. I'm going to school at Cal State Dominguez and my mom works. I also work. So we're paying $12.50 for one bedroom. And the property owner there, we've asked him to change the floor, to fix things, and he won't do it. And I've said, let's go half and half. And he still said no. I work. I work at Home Depot. I know how much materials cost. A lot of people are complaining here about prices and everything. No one pays cash here. Everything's in payments. I'm a supervisor at Home Depot. You can buy anything you want for 12 months with no interest. And homeowners who buy tile, they shouldn't be complaining because that isn't an investment in their property and then their property value goes up. It's not money out the window for the property owners. So I know that 1% isn't much, but don't make it too high or too low. Someone mentioned that they're paying $1,200 for 2 bedrooms. I said, wow, that's really cheap. But anyway, it just needs to be fair, even. If it's maybe raise it a little bit more than 1%, but well, that's all I ask. That's what I wanted to say. And honestly, it's hard for me and my mom. I'm going to school. I'm studying business administration and
Quiero que sepan que no todas las personas están en la misma situación. Hay muchas diferencias.
With the landlords, but like I said, just make it even. Make it even. If you guys want to change that, make it even. Don't let the landowners que se aprovechen, about the situation. And that's all I want to say. Just make it even, and thank you.
Thank you for that. City Clerk, please proceed with comments online.
Thank you. Caller or Zoom ID with the name Nicholas Patiño Villalpando. If you would please select the microphone icon. Thank you. You may proceed with your comment. Nicholas,
One moment. Can you hear me?
yes, we could hear you now.
Oh, perfect. Hello, good afternoon, city council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Nicolas Cordova Villalpando, and I'm a program specialist with Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. I am a resident of Southgate, right? And I'm deeply invested in the work of tenant right protections. I would like to make a comment in favor of the Rent Stabilization and Tenant Eviction Protection Ordinance number 925. The ordinance came into effect October 12, 2022, and was a huge victory for residents in Bell Gardens and has been recognized nationally as a victory that can turn the tide in LA County's housing crisis. However, community organizers who fought hard for this ordinance report that landlords are not complying with the law, that many tenants are facing harassment, and tenants have been taking on the unjust burden of constantly having to push for compliance. Landlords have also been attending the city council meetings to call for change or elimination of the ordinance. I ask for the city of Bell Gardens Council to stand in support of the ordinance number 925 because it protects the majority of your constituents. Almost 80% of your constituents are tenants, right? That is a grand majority, right? And this is in a city with one of the lowest medium incomes of the county at 40,000 K, right? Of which the population is 28% facing poverty. On the other hand, the Southern California Associations of Governments reports that 64% of households are burdened by rent, right? I don't know what landlords here are talking about. Oh, we're not charging people rent, as much, not to market, right? But when you see that over 64% of households are burdened by rent, not to talk about the ones that pay more than 50%, which is 30% of the household, right? We're heavily burdened in rent in LA County. Bell Gardens, right, it stood up for its renters. Also, right, like if people get displaced from Bell Gardens, it's really hard for them to come back. If we don't have the tenants, right, if we don't have our community here present to work with us and to even, enjoy, right, the fruits of, for example, like, your green initiative, right? Like,
30 seconds left.
it's not, all right, thank you. It's not sustainable to have people displaced, right? If people get displaced, they have to live farther from where they work. Okay, and that's just creates a lot more pollution, right? And in general, right, the community suffers when people get displaced. It changes it completely,
10
gentrifies
seconds
it.
left.
All right, and I think just want you to consider that really heavily, especially because your constituents need it and they want it.
Thank you. Your time is up. Zoom ID, Linda Castellanos, if you would please select the microphone icon to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You may proceed with
Okay.
your comment.
Thank you. First, I want to really put it out there that this is very difficult for all the volunteers sitting in front of us, the council members. And I want to really tell you that I really feel how difficult this can be with you. And I could really see that it could be very emotional as I'm listening to all the speakers. And I get that it is emotional. But the truth of it all is that landlords are not responsible for the lives of the tenants. We are not. I also started from nothing, and I'm at a point of really owning real estate, but it came from decisions I made. I'm not saying everybody had this ability. However, I also feel that having this low rent control fee that you're putting out there, it's really going to come back and really make Bell Gardens the lowest income area, not only financially, but physically. All of you will eventually be landlords because you're leaders. That's why you're sitting there. And you need to understand that fairness is part of leadership and consider both sides. I don't understand how this was acceptable. The numbers don't make sense. The numbers don't lie. And I really hope that you can find it in yourselves to see your future as landlords and see if this is fair or not. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Zoom ID, Jonathan Jager, if you would please select the microphone icon. Thank you. You may proceed with your comment. Jonathan Jager, you may proceed with your comment. You successfully unmuted
Can you hear
yourself.
me?
Yes, we could hear you now. Jonathan? It looks like we lost. We can't hear you now. Jonathan, you've successfully unmuted yourself. We just can't hear you.
Maybe we can go to our next speaker and then we'll try him again after.
Zoom ID, Bell Gardens resident, if you would please announce your name for the record and proceed with your comment.
Good evening. My name is Omar, and I'm a Bell Gardens resident and property owner. I'd like to address you guys first by straight out saying that I am against the rent ordinance. The state of California already had a statewide rent control, and I'm for tenant rights. Just to get that out of the way, but what the Bell Gardens rent control ordinance did was definitely was one sided.
Sorry, it looks like you muted yourself.
Oh, hello. Yes, the loopholes that property owners now have to go through is extremely unfair. Even from the registration fees, that if you compare those to nearby cities, is extremely high. Baldwin Park, $28, city of LA, 90. I don't know who came up with the fees for Bell Gardens, but it doesn't resonate with the local community. And not only that, but just the unfairness of the extremities you guys have put on rental property owners. A lot of the properties in Bell Gardens, they're older properties, so they need a lot of maintenance. We all know that inflation has gone up, prices on everything has gone up, from labor to material, to even the bills. You know, the water, the trash has gone up in the city, and to hit the small mom and pop property owners in Bell Gardens, because that's what the majority of us are. It was another pandemic, basically. You know, right when these ordinance talks started happening, I had a meeting with property owners, and even then there was a realtor who was already targeting us. Hey, if you guys are ready to sell, let us know. Rent control is not good for you guys. Your property's not going to be worth much. We will buy your properties cash. We became targets. I get calls all the time of people trying to lowball me for my property. You know, investors trying to come in here. This is not mom and pop. These are investors trying to come in here and lowball me for my property, because you guys have made it hard to be a property owner in Bell Gardens. This is just going to affect the way properties. Yes. This is just going to affect the way properties look. It's not going to give property owners much money at that to even fix stuff, around. This is going to start looking like Compton, South Central, and Watts, and that's not what we want out here. We would like to take pride in our property.
10 seconds left.
And to do that, we also need to help out the property owners. We need to be fair. We're for tenants' rights, but we also
Your time
have rights of property owners in mind. Thank you.
Zoom ID Moto E, if you would please select the microphone icon to unmute yourself and announce your name for the record.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Catalina. Les doy las gracias por darme la oportunidad de participar. Vivo en Bell Gardens. He estado escuchando las opiniones de cada uno de los dos partes del foro, tanto inquilinos como propietarios. Y lo único que yo veo es que si hay un aumento de renta.
And the only thing that I'm seeing is if there is a rent increase, there has to be wage increase. Okay. Wages are really low, and if wages go up, everything goes up. There was minimum wage was just raised to $15 an hour. So we have to make an adjustment, not just in rents, but also everything has to be balanced, because there are some people who make enough to be able to pay their rent, and most working people don't make enough to be able to pay their rent. Many parents have to work double shifts. And so sometimes they can't participate in these types of community forums. A law was passed in 1988 that added the category of disabled to fair housing laws as a protected class. There's a new proposal on the next elections saying that everyone has a right to housing, and this will be voted on. Of course, we have to live in dignity. This is not just in Bell Gardens, it's the whole Los Angeles area that is complaining about the same situation with housing, that a lot of people are living on the streets. A lot of people have been living for 4 or 5 years in tents. And this is really very sad. Thank you for allowing me to participate, and that's my opinion.
Zoom ID identified as iPhone.
Tenemos
If you
otra
will
persona más que
please
está
select the
comunicándose a través de
unmute
la
feature
plataforma
and
Zoom.
announce
Si
your
usted
name
desea,
for the
persona,
record.
por favor, anunciar su nombre y va a tomar la palabra.
Thank you. You may proceed with your comment if you would
Puede
please
seguir
announce your name
entonces
for the
con su
record.
comentario, anuncie su nombre, por favor.
It looks like we cannot hear that
Parece que
one.
no podemos oír a esta persona.
I will try to go back to Jonathan.
Voy a
If you would
tratar de
please select the
regresar.
microphone icon.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. You may proceed with your comment. Please announce your name for the record.
Great. My name is Jonathan Yeager. I'm speaking on item 11. I'm an attorney at Public Counsel. I was formerly at the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, where I had the honor of working with the city of Bell Gardens to develop the rent stabilization and tenant eviction protections ordinance. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I'm calling in to let you know that your ordinance has been working. It is balancing the needs of tenants and landlords and keeping people housed affordably. It would be a mistake to raise the baseline permitted rent increase in section 5.62.40. The current formula of 50% of inflation with a maximum cap of 4% correctly balances the needs of landlords while protecting vulnerable tenants. It is well documented that wages do not rise or fall with inflation in the short term or the long term. That means that even when inflation rises, vulnerable tenants are in no better position to pay higher rents. A person's wages do often rise over time, but not in any way that tracks broader economic activity. The ordinance already has 3 different mechanisms if the current rent cap isn't sufficient for a landlord. First, Section 50 grants the landlord a greater rent increase if the rent for the unit is more than 80% below fair market rent in Bell Gardens. Second, if the reason the rent cap isn't sufficient is due to a large capital expenditure, Section 60 allows the landlord to pass through those costs on top of the rent. And last, if the current rent cap isn't sufficient for any other reason, Section 70 lets the landlord petition for rent adjustment for any reason. So not only does the ordinance already have the ability for a landlord to request a higher rent increase, it specifically calls out the 2 reasons most cited by landlords tonight for needing a higher rent increase and provides unique processes for getting those. This ordinance was very thoughtfully written to balance both sides. The ordinance also already allows landlords to pass through 50% of the registration fee to tenants. The registration fee benefits both landlords and tenants by paying for the infrastructure that, for example, allows landlords to request those higher rent increases. Based on Bell Gardens' leadership on this issue, LA City and LA County have both begun the process of studying how their baseline rent increase limits can better meet the needs of their tenants, including potentially lowering their formulas closer to what Bell Gardens is doing. And the city of Oakland in the Bay Area already has a threshold of 60% of CPI with a maximum cap of 3%. So thank you so much for the time. I implore you to not change anything about your ordinance because it is doing a remarkable job of making sure that Bell Gardens residents are not unjustly displaced from their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last comment provided.
If there's no objection by the members, I will close public participation. We will now move on to city manager report. City manager, will you please give your report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Chavez. I'd just like to mention a couple of items that we've had. Our neighborhood watch had a meeting at Ross Hall at 6:30 p.m. On January 30th. They had a special presentation from dispatch. They're going to have another neighborhood watch meeting coming up on Wednesday, February 21st. This one's in the morning at 9 a.m. There'll be a presentation from our parking enforcement group. So that one should be interesting. I'd like to mention next Monday is President's Day, so City Hall and some city offices will be closed. But obviously our police department, rec community services, public works, most of the executive management team in some way, shape or form will be working that day. So if residents need service, they'll be able to be taken care of. Particularly maybe of interest of some of the participants here. Every month we host a workshop for property owners regarding the rent stabilization ordinance. Also every month we host a tenant workshop. These are in person. They're here at City Hall. The one for property owners will be February 20th. The one for tenants will be February 21st. And always if there's a question, you can come in person, you can email, you can call, you can download the city's mobile app on Apple or for Samsung users and ask any question or report anything that you would like to report. We're here to help. Also want to mention, we've tried to increase the number of events and utilization of the skate park. Obviously, a lot of residents choose to use that facility. We had our first Punk at the Park event on Friday, February 2nd, right in between Thursday deluge of rain and then a Saturday, Sunday start of another deluge of rain with a live DJ. That's 6 to 8 p.m. So the first of every month, we will have this event at the skate park. Also want to mention every Friday, we have a resident art and yard sale at Veterans Park from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We did have to cancel one during the rain, but otherwise that event is up and running. And I would like to just finish with a couple things that are coming up with our parks. We just reopened the playground at Veterans Park after a couple of months. There was some equipment and service damage that took a while to get some specialized equipment and contractors out to get that fixed. So that's up and running just in time for kids to get back outside between rainstorms. Also want to mention that the new LED lights will be going in sometime in the next 30 to 60 days at Ford Park. And then also in the 60 or 90-day range, we'll have new playground equipment, picnic tables, benches, and trash receptacles at Asmus and Hannon Park. So Veterans Park, Ford Park, Asmus Park, Hannon Park, all receiving upgrades prior to spring and hopefully the El Nino calming down so we can have a nice summer. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for that, City Manager. We will now move on to the consent calendar. Does any member of the council, successor agency wish to pull an item for separate discussion? Seeing none, may I entertain a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Approve items 1 through 9. Is that correct with the motion? Okay. All right, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Barcena and a second by Councilwoman Gomez. City Clerk, please conduct the roll call.
Yes, thank you. Members of the council and successor agency Gomez.
Yes.
Councilmember Pulido is still absent. Councilmember Sanchez.
Yes, items 1 through 9. Yes for items 1 through 8, no on 9.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Barcena
Yes.
and Mayor Chavez.
Yes. Thank you so much. We will now before we begin the discussion items, we do want to take a 5-minute recess and we'll be resuming at 8:01 p.m. Thank you. All right, all right, all right. We're gonna start reconvene the meeting back at 8:05 p.m. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 10?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Chavez. This item is the local commission's appointment list.
Can everyone please lower their voice? We are now reconvening the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your cooperation. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 10?
Thanks again, Mayor Chavez. This item is the local commission's appointment list. This is a regular item. Staff recommends that the council please review the commission's appointment list and by motion remove commissioners and or make appointments to the posted vacancies. Thank you, Mayor.
Does any member of the council have any changes to make? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 11. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 11?
Thanks again, Mayor Chavez. This item is an update on the city's rent stabilization and tenant eviction protections ordinance. This was an item that was requested at the first meeting in January. Our community development director and his staff have put together a presentation to provide an update for the council as to how things are going with this ordinance. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gus Romo, our community development director. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I was going to have our housing specialist, Ms. Veronica Jaramillo, who worked very hard on this, present, but unfortunately she lost her voice rooting for the 49ers.
I'm in that as well. I went through that too. Tough loss. Overtime too, right?
Yep. So, Mayor, members of the City Council, I know this is has become a very sensitive topic, and there's people on both sides of the equation that are expressing their concerns to you tonight. Just to give you a little bit of background, and I'm sure everybody's already read this into the report, the City Council went through an extensive process of putting together an ad hoc committee. This was back in 2019. That ad hoc committee looked at various professionals in the field. They had workshops, in fact, 4 workshops with the public, both in English and Spanish. And they directed staff to put together an ordinance along with our city attorney with the help of various nonprofit organizations as well. We looked at various ordinances throughout, and the city then was presented this ordinance. And on August 22nd, the first reading happened. September 12th of 2022, the second reading, and the ordinance was adopted. 30 days later, on October 12th, the ordinance became effective. Shortly after that, City Council had to do a cost analysis. That was required to be able to implement the ordinance. As part of the recommendation, 2 options for rent increase limits were provided by staff. City Council decided on an alternative option as follows: limit the annual rent increase to 50% of the change in the consumer price index, or 4%, whichever is less. No minimum floor. Now, keep in mind, back then, the inflation was a bit high. It was a little over 8%. So the maximum at the time was 4%. And I'll get a little bit more into that. The second modification the City Council did is they added a waiver to the rental registry fee for any owners of residential rental property that had no more than 4 dwelling units, and they actually occupied one of the 4 rental units. So these are considered the small mom and pop landlords. So currently, as I was saying, at the time the ordinance was adopted, U.S. inflation was at a record high, 8.9% or 9% as we rounded it off. And since then, of course, inflation has declined. LA area CPI as of December 2023 was at 3.5. So if you look at, initially, we had the 4% increase because of that 8% inflation. In 2023, when it went down to 3.8%, 50% of that is 1.9%. And that's what a lot of the landlords are having issue with. Now, because the ordinance does not establish a minimum rent increase or a floor, what is called, the annual increase could fall even lower should CPI drop further. So for instance, if inflation was at 2%, then the maximum increase would be 1%. If inflation was at 1%, maximum increase would be 0.5%. If there is no inflation or negative inflation, then there would be no increase at all. Now, there is a way for property owners to increase if they're below market. The City Council in the City of Bell Gardens is one of the few that have this provision, along with the City of Inglewood. So if rent charged for a unit is below 80% of the local market rate, property owners may apply for an additional 3% increase. So right now, 1.9, if the owners get approved, then you could be at 3 plus 1.9, which would be 4.9% total. And I'll give you some numbers as to how many people have applied for that. And again, this is based on the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's small market rents. And the reason we wanted to do this is because LA County, of course, has a more inflated rent. So we wanted to look at the national average. And again, a property owner must apply. There's an application that staff has for this. It's a very simple application. It's a couple of pages with information from the tenants. And if approved, again, that rent right now, as it stands, could be at 4.9% increase. This shows the HUD rents for Bell Gardens, and this changes every year. So as of October 1st of 2023, the fair market rents nationally average what you see here. So a studio unit, or what's called an efficiency unit, 1460. 80% of that is 1168, which means if a property owner is below that 1168, they can apply for that additional 3% and so forth. It goes up from a studio unit to a 4-bedroom unit. There's also allowable pass-throughs through your ordinance. Capital improvements. So if there's circumstances where the owners have to make an improvement to the property, and again, they apply for this, and staff then looks at it to see if this is qualified through this ordinance. And a lot of things that could happen is, for instance, if there's a catastrophe that happens, and now all of a sudden the unit has to be fixed because of a national disaster or so forth. It doesn't talk about regular maintenance things. So things like painting that you have to keep up with your unit may not qualify under this. But again, it's on a case-by-case basis. This allows the property owners to pass up to 50% of eligible property improvement costs to the tenants. It has to be shown as a separate line item. It's separate from the rent, along with a clear end date of that amortization period, which the City Council decided was going to be at least 5 years. And within that 5 years, it can't be more than 5% per year. So we don't want the tenant, again, to be gouged with a huge amount because of the capital improvement costs. So keeping that in mind, it's amortized over 5 years at 5% max. Rental registry fees can also be passed on to the tenant. And again, we're saying in your ordinance, they can be, the property owner does not have to, but they have that option. To pass up to 50% of that over a 12-month period. So in this case, your $156 unit amounts to $6.50 per tenant per month. Now, the cost study that was required by this ordinance in order to implement it, it went through an extensive RFP process. City Council selected a firm called Revenue and Cost Specialists. They completed the study, and through this study, they interviewed several cities with rent stabilization programs covering staffing duties, registry protocols, software needs, and startup issues. RCS analyzed also the city data and fees and looked at our existing staffing levels. And then on September 25th of last year, the cost study was presented to the City Council with two options. There is a minimum base level staffing option at $126 a unit. And then there is the best practices staffing at $156 a unit. Now, keeping in mind that the city council wanted to make sure this was the most efficient program available, where property owners and tenants did not have to wait around, 4 to 6 weeks to get an answer on an application. We wanted to make sure we had enough staffing to be able to respond quickly. So that's why that best practices was selected. Keep it in mind, though, it's going to take some time to get there, 12 to 18 months, because we don't have that staffing. Tonight, under your consent calendar, you approved an item to be able to bring forward those positions. So now we're going to be able to bring those and, float them out there so people can apply. And hopefully, as we're going through that process, within the next 3 to 4 months, we'll have people on board to be able to take on those additional duties. We've also already started the software process. So last year, you selected Citizen Serve, also known as Online Solutions, to create a permit tracking system, a land use management system. That takes into account the rental registry software as well. So that's already in the move. So the R-STEP program implementation, so far, here's what we've had. We've got several forms. There's the property registration form. So far, the number of properties that have registered, 1,100. Now, keeping in mind that that registration started a year ago, started even before we had the rental registry. So there were already applications in place even before the fees had been collected. So when you look at that asterisk, this amounts to approximately 4,400 units, because the majority of the applications that we receive are 4-unit properties. Also keeping in mind, you're not going to collect all those fees because there's several of those that are also owner occupied. So if you recall, your ordinance exempts or waives the fee for those 4-unit properties that are owner occupied. The tenant rent increase contest form. So in other words, these are applications where a tenant says, hey, it's unfair. The owner is increasing the rent more than they're supposed to. We've had 25 of those applications come in. The below market, this is what we were just talking about, that additional 3%. We've had 187 applications submitted, and 153 have already been processed. The fair return petitions, we've only had one of those, and that's currently in process. No capital improvement petitions yet. So here's a rent comparison. What we've done on our staff, Ms. Veronica Jaramillo and our office assistant, Rosario Quirarte, we've looked at different cities. Our city attorney, also Norma Tabares, has helped us with this. So we looked at the county, for instance. We looked at a comparison to the city of Bell Gardens. We looked at Baldwin Park, Inglewood, Santa Ana, Cudahy, Culver City, and state law also. So if you look at this, you'll see, for instance, yes, Bell Gardens is at 50% of CPI or 4%, whichever is lower, no floor. Baldwin Park is completely tied to the CPI, 5% max, no less than 1% though. So the minimum Baldwin Park can ever charge is 1%, or I should say landlords in Baldwin Park. Inglewood bases it on the number of units. So 5 units or more, 3%, or CPI, that's full CPI, whichever is greater. And then if it's 4 units or less, it's 5% plus CPI, but a maximum of 10%. Santa Ana, as you see here, is also tied to 80% of the CPI. So we're at 50%. Inglewood is at 100%. Santa Ana is at 80%, or 3%, whichever is less. Cudahy, also tied 100% to CPI, so theirs is 3% maximum. However, if CPI is 0 or less, then no increase is allowed. So a 0 floor, also like Bell Gardens. Culver City, tied 100% to the CPI, 5% maximum. If CPI falls below 2%, then the minimum increase is 2%. And that CPI for Culver City is updated on a monthly base. County of LA, as some of the speakers were saying, 4%, and that's based from January 1st through June 30th of 2024 of this year. Thereafter, it's tied to the CPI, which has made or has a maximum of 8% and a minimum of 2%. State law, 5% plus CPI. So 5% minimum plus whatever the CPI is, but no more than 10%. And also one time a year. So now let's go to the maximum allowable rent increase. In comparison to all these other cities, cities' annual rent increase is the lowest of the city survey. However, keep in mind that we also have that 3% catch-up provision for below fair market. And again, except for Inglewood, cities survey do not have this feature. Now let's look at the rental registry fees. Bell Gardens is at 156, Inglewood 184. Now I'm looking at Baldwin Park, $28 per unit. After doing our research, what we found out is Baldwin Park is hands-off. They're not providing the service that the city of Bell Gardens and others are providing. They're a reactive enforcement. So they're not giving people applications. They're not allowing people to submit and so forth. They're allowing the property owners and the tenants to figure it out on their own. All they're doing is saying, here's the law. There's one staff member that Baldwin Park has for a population of 77,000. So again, what the city of Bell Gardens wanted was a proactive, efficient program that would be responsive to the needs of both the tenants and the landlords. So that's the difference in the fee. And again, if we look at Santa Ana, it's $100 per unit. Cudahy, no fees are being collected at this time. They're working on their cost study. So they're going to come back with a fee. Culver City, 167 per unit. The County of LA is $30 partially covered, just cause only units, and 90 for fully covered that are subject to rent control and eviction protections. And state law does not have one. So that's not applicable for state law. So annual rental registration fee, we believe, is within the range of other cities when you look at the average. To date, the city has collected over $375,000 in fees. The program budget is $1,020,968 based on what you had approved last year. We're getting to that point of collecting. I mean, when you look at this, $375,000, and we're only here in February. So within a month, we've already collected that much. So landlords are coming in and paying. And when you look at all the units, we don't see getting to that 12 to 18 month period as a problem. We think we're going to be able to collect all of those fees since we're already at about a quarter of it. So any costs to operate the RCIP program that are not covered by registration fees are impacting the general fund. So if we do not collect these fees, then your general fund is paying for that. The other thing that we wanted to look at was the median income, because this was brought up several times, saying that the city of Bell Gardens is a low-income community. When you look at all the cities that we compared, we're in line with like Cudahy. Cudahy is approximately 49,500. We're at 53,900. Other cities like Baldwin Park, 114,000. Inglewood, 67,000. Santa Ana, 84,000. The county median income is 83,000, and then state, when you look at the state overall, close to 92,000. So we are on the lower end of incomes. Property cost increases. Again, this is something that your speakers tonight here in the public brought up to you. Property owners typically pay water and trash bills. The other utilities, gas bill, electric bill, are typically the responsibility of the tenant. When you look at increases over the past 3 years, yes, water rates have increased approximately 23% a year, trash rates about 8%, and property taxes in general about 2%. So this is what property owners have expressed concern about. When their city manager and myself had met with some of these landlords, that was what was coming up. And that's, I think, what you heard tonight as well. And so they feel that because of their increases, that they're too restrictive. Right now, the increase at 1.9% to allow them to be able to maintain their properties in habitable condition. But keep in mind that habitable condition was never something that they should not be doing. They should be doing that regardless. So every property has to be in habitable condition. So in conclusion, we're here tonight because staff is requesting direction. Based on the comments that you've received from the public and the staff has received, we've been directed to put together this update, bring it to you for direction. You can either give direction to amend the ordinance or leave it as it is. That's what we're looking for. Now, based on the stakeholder testimony and feedback, Again, you have that option from what you heard tonight. And in amending, we could also look at clarifying provisions to the ordinance. Maybe make them, if some people don't understand something, maybe rewording some of that language. Any amendment would require city council direction and approval. And the changes may include modifying the rent increase limit to reflect the change in CPI. In other words, go to 80% of CPI or 100% of CPI, or leave it as it is. Also looking at current economic conditions, the current CPI. So all in all, we're here to ask you for direction. And again, your direction could be receive and file, leave as is, or staff, we'd like you to take a look at amending portions of the ordinance and come back with a recommendation. So that concludes my report. If there's any questions, myself and Veronica are here to answer them. Thank you.
Does any member, thank you so much for that, Director Romo. Does any member of the council have any questions or comments?
I do have a few questions. So just to clarify, as of right now, for the rental registry fee, you guys have collected a little over $300,000. It's allocated for $100,000. So like mentioned, if the landlords per se do not file the rent registry and we don't meet that threshold, therefore the general fund will be at a deficit because the city will have to provide those funds for the allocated positions. Is that correct?
The city council appropriated, well, I'm not sure if maybe I'll ask our city manager and finance director if the money has been appropriated, but I know they gave direction to say we would have a budget of $1,020,968 for this program. And the idea was that eventually that budget would be covered entirely by the rental registration fees.
It's not.
So if, Councilmember Sanchez, so I think what you're asking is, if we've collected 300 and let's say 350,000, I forget the exact number, and we're anticipating costs of up to $1 million, the difference would be funded by the general fund. I think the counter to that is we did understand, I think when we started this, that it was going to take us somewhere in the, maybe as much as 18 to 24 months to fully have compliance with the fee that's paid. So for practical purposes, in the long term, the short answer is yes, the general fund would cover the difference. Our goal will be to strike a balance there between the actual revenues that come in and the actual costs.
And at the time of the ordinance, what was the purpose of the 50% of CPI?
I can answer for the community development director. I think at the time CPI was at a historical high. It was at around 8%. And with I don't think there was any end in sight necessarily at that time with supply chain shortages. COVID was still ending. And I think that the half of inflation at the time, which was about 4%, seemed to be a number that you would kind of see out there, I guess, in the rent control arena at the time. And so any number different from that looked like it may not provide, I think, enough protection for the tenants at the time.
So based on the report, it states that the annual rent increase of 50% of CPI or 4%, and then we would look at CPI ending in April of each year. Is that correct?
Yes, council member.
So depending what CPI is this year, we can go ahead and look if there needs to be any type of modification at that time.
Yes, because the CPI information, I think for April probably isn't put out until around July, August timeframe. Is that right? Yes.
It comes out April 1st, but it does not become effective until November 1st.
That's based on our ordinance, the November 1st.
Correct.
No further questions at this time. Thank you.
Any other members of the council have any questions or comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Move to receive and file.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion of Mayor Pro Tem Barcena and a second by Councilwoman Gomez. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Gomez.
Yes.
Councilmember Pulido is still absent. Councilmember Sanchez.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena
Yes.
and Mayor Chavez.
Yes. We will now move on to council member and successor agency comments, starting off with Councilwoman Gomez.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for sharing all of your thoughts and your comments. I understand that this is a very difficult situation for everyone. I don't believe that we've given enough time for this ordinance to fully flesh out, to see its impact on the community. As Councilwoman Sanchez said, there is an opportunity to look at future CPI and see what that looks like. I understand that, the CPI was set at a time when inflation was at a much different level than it is now. And I think that there's always room for review. There's always a time for review and there's always room for improvement. I don't think right now is that time. But again, it's something that is still in the forefront of all of our concerns. And I think that's something that we can look at again. With that said, I do want to again express thanks to our city staff for the work that they've done. I do think that we need to really clarify what the ordinance is, do a lot more outreach to people, to landlords and to residents, to make sure that they completely understand all of the tools that are available to them so that they can get a fair return, so that landlords can get a fair return on their investment, and so that tenants can also avail themselves of protections for themselves. Thank you.
Moving on to Councilwoman Sanchez.
I appreciate everybody being here tonight, vocalizing your concerns regardless on what side it is. I think that it's about being equitable, right? I've lived in Bell Gardens my entire life. I didn't move away to college for a few years and then come back. This is my home. This is where I've lived my entire life. My family has been here for 50 years, both on the renter side and also as homeowners, not landlords, but homeowners, right? And I know landlords as well. I wish that, things could be different and that it could be more equitable for everybody. That's why I asked the questions that I asked. And I want to see this city thrive, right? I want to be able to maintain high quality housing for everybody, foster the small businesses, the mom and pop landlords, because that's really important, to elevate our community as a whole. Currently, the way the situation is, I don't see that happening. But unfortunately, I'm one of 5 people. And so I'm hoping that we can revisit this in April when CPI comes out again to see what's going to be the best for everybody as a whole. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Barson.
First off, I want to thank the staff for preparing the report. I know this is not an easy report to work on when we're going full throttle with other projects that are extremely, extremely busy. Nevertheless, I appreciate the fact that you took a moment to put all this information together. One of the biggest issues I see is there's a lot of confusion out there. I appreciate the entire process that took about 2 years to come up with this ordinance and all of the considerations, not only to the tenants, but to the property owners. And what do I mean by that? Well, as we just learned right now is that in November is when the new CPI kicked in, right? What does that mean? That literally means that if you're a property owner and you know the ordinance and you understand what's going on, you could potentially raise your rent not only by the 4% cap, which applied before November, but if you have capital improvements projects, that's an additional 5%. You add that together, that's 9%. And if you happen to be a property owner who is also below the 80th percentile, that's an additional 3%. Now, I do have a question for our community development director. But community development director, do you know if, I mean, that added up to about 12%, I think, altogether. But do you know if a property owner would actually be able to raise the rent 12%? I mean, because based on our ordinance, it looks that way, but can you clarify?
My understanding is that they cannot go above state law.
Okay,
So
which is
state law
10,
is at 10%.
it's 10%. Okay, well, nevertheless, I think my point is clear that this notion that we're not here to support property owners, please be careful who's sharing that information with you, because me being part of this rent control ad hoc committee for over 2 years and sitting side by side with property owners and real estate agents, we made sure that we included protections for you that are designed to keep you afloat, that are designed so that if you're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars improving your properties, you're also able to pass on about 50% of that to your tenants. Now, you will have to work with the city because that's the whole point of the rent control ordinance. But I think, I hope that you can see with this presentation that this council has goodwill, and the council that was here before, about a year ago when we voted to approve this ordinance in the way that it was presented, had their best intentions in mind. And we continue to do that. And we hope that we find better ways to continue to serve you in the future. Again, thank you, staff, for providing this. I think it was a very clarifying presentation. And I want to thank the council for all the work that they do and their support.
Thank you so much for that. As for my comments, I want to echo the sentiments of all my colleagues. Thank you to everybody who came out and voiced your concerns. It's interesting to once again get a refresher of the rent stabilization ordinance along with the rent registry that we passed not too long ago. I understand, and believe me, a lot of landlords, a lot of tenants, today, even prior to the meeting, upwards of 10 to 15 different comments were coming in from both renters, landlords, and your concerns. Again, thank you to staff. Really appreciate the presentation. And I feel, to echo Mayor Pro Tem Barcena's point, I feel that there is a lot of miscommunication or confusion in regards to this ordinance. I'm proud to say that our community has made history with rent stabilization. If you look at the other cities listed, we're one of the most needed community in terms of rent stabilization. I was doing the math in terms of how much rent would be allowed per unit if you had, for example, a studio or a one bedroom, let's just say a one bedroom. Because we have that 80% local market rate component, if you're charging $1,320, $1,320 for a one bedroom, you're allowed to raise upwards of 4.9%, correct? If you submit the application. What would be a reason that a person would get rejected, even if they're under the 80% threshold?
If they're under the 80%, if they've already raised the rent during that year, then they would not qualify. But if, because you're only allowed to raise the rent one time a year.
When I've talked to landlords and property owners, this ordinance wasn't meant to attack or affect direct mom and pop landlords. If you look at all the other ordinances that are passed, most, if not all of them, don't have a component where there's protections for mom and pop landlords. There's exceptions if your rent is low. I ask landlords and property owners back, how much is justified to raise from 1 month to the next? Right? We talk about wages. We talk about income for our folks. The median income in Bell Gardens is $50,000, $60,000 at most, right? And we as a council, we as a body, we have to consistently reflect on that data that's available of the people that we represent. So again, really appreciate everybody who came out. Really appreciate everyone's comments. We're not going to get it perfect. Believe me, it's not easy, but again, I really appreciate everyone coming out, voicing your opinions. Thank you to Councilwoman Sanchez as well, for sharing your concerns, and along with Councilwoman Gomez and City Manager Mike and everyone else. With that said, that will conclude my comments. And I'll go ahead and, if there's no objection by the members of the City Council, I will now adjourn the City Council Successor Agency Joint Meeting at 8:40 p.m.